period, because I turned it down once and it reoccurred. And I got exposed to the fact that in my particular tradition, there is a great depth of mysticism and spirituality. I knew nothing about it. And suddenly, while making this movie, I found that there was an entire other way of looking at life. The movie taught me. So I then, and I sit here, stand here, think here. What does these words, when you said spiritual? I remember one of the things that I've been trying to define what that means. What is spiritual? And on one side, I know from many kinds of experience, it is that which contains, holds what is manifest and physical. But it has no definition. I have no definition. Those of us who need to have things to hold on to, it's like, what do I do? I remember Ram Dass once said, and I heard people say, he said this line, he said, being free is having nowhere to stand. What does that mean? I'm standing here. Nowhere to put it. And I'm just beginning to understand what that is. And it took a near-death experience, my own, to open up the possibility, because I'm a person who can think about it, but is it real for me, or is it just my mind thinking about it? And I'm sitting here honored to be in the presence of everybody, but particularly your existence is a reflection of all of this for me right this second. And can I grasp it? And can I be it? Can I recognize, just not on an intellectual level, that in fact it is true right now? And of course. So the answer to the question is how to keep that dialogue going between the practical and the real, which is the spiritual.
Jason, we've talked about the great power of social media, the democratization, the liberating aspects, the self-empowering aspects. But in my work with college students, I also find that social media tends to be a distraction in some ways, and that I feel that sometimes students are there but they're not really present because they're constantly checking all their updates. I think a new study showed that the average student will check 27 different types of media within 1 hour while sitting on a computer. And I fear that our students are...
I just checked 3.
I fear that our students may have 500 friends on Facebook, but not any real friends. And I fear that the more they talk with their thumbs, the less they talk with their mouths. Do you see a downside to social networking in terms of being something that is spiritually disembodied?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a double-edged sword to everything: food, drug, anything that we can, consume. I think that students were checking 10 times, they were checking 27 things 20 years ago. Also, it might not have been these websites, and I think that attention span is more related to age than the media that is available to us. Having said that, we need to be able to draw a fine line in the sand where we do things and we don't do things. When I go to a meeting with someone, I very purposefully do not pick up my cell phone the whole time. And that always kind of surprises people because I'm always tweeting when they're not with me, but when you are with me, you get me. And so, having said that, though, I think that I'm very inspired by the work of Steve Jobs, and I think that if you really want to make something great in this world, you have to isolate yourself. You cannot run around and be worried about going to parties every night if you really want to build something great. So, I mean, in terms of the isolation factor, there's a double-edged sword to that as well. And I don't remember who said this quote, but if you want people to listen to you, you have to learn to be alone with your thoughts. So, I think in some ways, the 140-character Twitterverse may be a bad side of it, but it also may be reinforcing these ideals that we really need to focus on our own thoughts and communicate well. And sitting in front of these computers gives us that way to do that. The other thing that's wonderful about the internet is that there is no color online. There's not much diversity other than your avatar and your name. And so there's a lot more commonality there than differences in a very real way. I may not go out to parties every night, but I have real relationships with people all over the world that I've never met before through this wonderful medium. So, I think we have to be responsible with it, but also encourage it.
Guruji, visual storytelling tends to draw us outward with the promise of fulfilling something inside of us. How can we find inner fulfillment through film and television and new media?
The general experience of wonder or something so beautiful is you shut your eyes, you say, oh, it's excellent. Even if you are having a donut or the moment you take it and say, oh, that's fantastic. Whenever you say, oh, it's fantastic, automatically your eyes shut. So it says that's something that's so beautiful, so wonderful, is deep within. When you repeat it, somehow it loses the charm. So whenever you like something and you keep repeating it, you don't find it anymore there. So always the joy and enjoyment is in the transition, when the mind is off one thing and is not yet used to the other thing. In between this, there is a certain gap where the mind comes in touch with that gap. But unfortunately, it links that pleasure to the following object. And then you gallop after the object and you lose the taste. Even with the Twitter or movies, whatever the taste, but if you are doing it over and over and again, there is a point of breakdown that comes that you get fed up with it. You don't want to do it anymore. That's where you need to retire, take some time off to yourself. As you correctly said, isolation. I would say you don't have to isolate with everything, but isolate in your mind. You can sit and just close your eyes, go deep within. Do a few minutes of meditation. That retiring from activity to inner rest. And again, retiring from rest, not be there all the time, and be dynamic in activity, brings that balance, the most needed balance. That, I feel, is the source of creativity.
I want to ask our three panelists the same question, and we'll start with Norman. Guruji has said that a deeper experience of our own nature can lead to a more powerful expression of human values within ourselves. What elements do we most need to be present in film or media in order for the viewer to be led into a higher state of awareness for a deeper experience of themselves?
The first thing I want to say is that I wish you guys could be sitting right here, because I'm sensing such a beauty of just peace and joy sitting next to you. So it comes down to me, to authenticity in myself, which comes down to another layer of being emotionally authentic, so that I can ultimately touch my heart, and so that I see through the eyes of my heart. And if we can do that, and I think it starts with ourselves, if we can do that through the media, I think it ripples out to the edge of the universe. It is a resonance, and we can have impact at a distance by doing the inner work and the inner change. So that's my journey.
Jeremy, same question. What elements need to be present in a film or media project in order for the viewer to be led into a higher state of awareness or a deeper experience of themselves?
The elements in a film. Well, I guess the last part is the question for me, how to get a deeper awareness of oneself. What I really loved that Guruji just said was a couple of minutes. I used to go through this thing about meditation. What if I don't do it for 20 minutes? It's not any good. The idea that you're saying, even a minute, even a second. I love the quote that you just gave us about be with yourself alone with your thought before. So there is this business of the business of no longer business, and being able to come from a place that's not just about ego and greed. One of the things that film can do is, in fact, create compassion. An actor becomes, I was just talking today to Oliver Stone about working with some of his actors, and the actor playing Nixon. And the actors, or playing George W. Bush. I can't play George W. I hate the man. Absolutely hate the man. You're asking me to play him? And inevitably the actor played him and found in him, with all of the failings, a human being. And this business of having compassion is, I think, one of the issues. Compassion for yourself, big deal, tough enough for me, not for you, for me. And then compassion for others. And that is, in fact, an experience that film can actually provide. So it's working from that. I think that's one of the places that we can change ourselves and others. Yeah, it's interesting. I just learned that Zimmerman, I didn't realize, I saw a photograph of him, and I realized how young he is. And suddenly, because immediately he was the villain. But he too is in the mix of this victim. And to have compassion for him too. And that's really tough. But I think that's also part of what we're all, well, if we're going to be what we can be, that's part of what we need to be able to do.
Jason?
So I have two things. A lot of it has, when I watch a film now, especially as someone who makes them all the time, I see that there's a heart that comes through in the films that we love, and that heart that comes through is based on the joy that the director and his crew had when they were making it. And if you do not have that pure joy with your crew and yourself, if this isn't a project, I can't take on a project that I don't want to dedicate 5 to 6 years of my life to, because that's how long these things take, really. And so when you see something that someone who made it committed to that in their creative process when they made that commitment, I think it resonates, and it has nothing to do with the actors on the screen or the editing or the shooting, but it's really about the joy that each of those people took in creating this thing that you see. And that is unspoken, but I think it's very real. And the other thing I think a lot of it has to do with is how much listening the filmmaker did before making the film. I think listening in this world is underrated and underdone, and the more we listen, the more fine-tuned our message can become. And with social, I say, like, every tweet I send, I've read 1,000 tweets. And that's very true. And I think when we see a film that really resonates with us, it's because the filmmaker spent a lot of time listening before showing you what he or she thinks.
I'm going to ask one more question to the panel, and then we open it up for a conversation. Christian, I'll ask if there's a handheld mic. Maybe we can get that for the Q&A. And I'll start with Guruji. The question is, each of you, in the work that you do and in your art, are expressing a personal vision for what the world might be. As we sit here in this room, what collaborative vision of the world can we create together? And quite simply, what would a world powerfully inspired by human values look like? From your perspective.
My dream is to see the world which is free from stress and violence, where there is no prejudice. I usually say, put it like this, of course it's too ambitious. A violence-free society, disease-free body, stress-free mind, inhibition-free intellect, trauma-free memory, sorrow-free soul. I feel that this is the birthright of every human being. See today how cell phone has reached all over the globe. Every nook and corner you find cell phones. Social media has reached it. Can't we reach the education about one's own emotion? How to deal with one's own emotion? See, neither in school nor at home anyone teaches us how to deal with the negative emotions. It's natural to get agitated. It's natural to get upset or angry or But we live with it without knowing how to get over them and live in the present. And come back and smile again like a child. As baby, we had done this. As a child, we were crying and the tears are still on our cheek and we started smiling. It didn't take as much time to smile back again. But now if you are upset, it takes months together to come back to your smile. So we lack this education of coming to the present, coming to the now. Perhaps through social media and through cinema, movies, if this message could come back to people that life is an amalgamation of so many things, some pleasant, some unpleasant, and sail through them with a smile. When this message gets to people, I think we can have a better world, a world free from corruption. Again here, corruption, I feel, begins where belongingness ends. Nobody practices corruption with people whom they think they belong to them. And today, Africa, when there are so many millions are dying, the rulers are stacking all their billions of dollars in ladder. Our friend Paul or somewhere else. So, same